Hey guys, I thought I would share with you my top 10 favorite Charlotte Tilbury makeup products. And I feel like I haven't talked about Charlotte Tilbury a lot on my channel lately. I think in all honesty, I got a little bit of pillow talk fatigue. I'll admit it, a little pillow talk fatigue. I kind of stepped away from Charlotte Tilbury, but the other day I was just browsing around Sephora, actually in person, and I found myself in front of the Charlotte Tilbury gondola. And I started thinking, I'm like, so many of the Charlotte Tilbury products that I've purchased, they were so old that I had since decluttered. And I was thinking, I don't think I have any of their lipsticks left. I was kind of going through my head, like what I had and what I didn't have. And there were so many things that I wanted to repurchase. I was like, you know what? I love, love, love her Kissing lipsticks, a little foreshadowing there, and some other products. And so I ended up repurchasing those and I was checking out and I thought, I want to do this video because I've recently talked about her Film Star Bronze and Glow, how much I love that, how that has kind of like re-entered my life. And I feel like, I don't know if like going back to basics is really what I would describe this, but it's at the point where I feel like Charlotte Tilbury is a little nostalgic. I mean, she's not a new brand anymore by any stretch, but I don't know if I'd go so far as to say like she's been around forever, but she was a relatively new brand when I started getting into YouTube. So I just personally have a little bit of nostalgia. I remember some of the very first products that I purchased from her and how, oh my, they were like little treasures. I had a little acrylic organizer that held my entire collection, if you can believe. But anyway, I thought, let me do a top 10 because there really are a ton of Charlotte Tilbury products that I love. And this list was actually very difficult to like whittle down to 10. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start with none other than the Hollywood Flawless filter. I use the shade Too Light. And I don't have it on today because I have something else that it just would have been too much. But anyway, I remember when this came out, I thought it was game changing. I remember putting it on and thinking, is this a primer? Is this a highlighter? Is this a foundation? Is this a skin tint? What is it, a concealer? I had no idea because when you opened it up, you got this giant, doe foot applicator, and there wasn't a ton of coverage. There were different shades though, not as many as there are today. I remember when it launched, it had, a few, but it had shades and I was like, what do I do with this? And it was one of those products that it was like, do whatever you want with it. So I remember playing around with it, using it as a primer, laying it down. I remember kind of mixing a little bit into foundation. I remember just using it as a highlight. And it really worked for all of those things. And I remember just putting it on by itself before I put on a little bit of a sheer tint. I think at that time I was using her Wonder Glow. Is that still around? Her Wonder Glow in the squeezy tube. And I was like, this is like a blurring, like complexion perfecting product without actual coverage. And it felt like pantyhose for my face. That's what I said. I was like, this is like pantyhose for your face. And I think many of you got that. Many of you probably unsubscribed at that point, but it just created that kind of illusion to your complexion. It sort of did a little perfecting. But anyway, I think since then this has become like an iconic product in her line. They've extended the shade range. They haven't changed the formula, at least not to my knowledge. And I really like the texture too, because it does lend itself to being all those things. It's thin enough to mix into foundation, to wear as a primer, but it's also like thick enough, like there's a little bit to it that you can wear it by itself or you can wear it as highlighter over makeup. Anyway, I love this product and I do feel like this product has been imitated quite a bit since its launch. This next product I do actually have on my face. I am wearing it as foundation, basically, as my base product. This is the Unreal Skin Sheer Glow Tint Hydrating Foundation Stick. Charlotte Tilbury has very, very long names for her products. I'm gonna need her to calm down with. That's what this is, and that's what I have on my skin. So I am wearing shade 3, and this is very sheer, so I feel like there's probably a range of shades that would probably work for you. This is a very glowy foundation. If you were just to use this product as your base product, it is very, very glowy. And someone in my comments very astutely pointed out that they thought it was the Hollywood Flawless filter in solid stick form. And I think it has a little bit more coverage than this, probably because it is like in solid form, but it really does have like quite a glow to it. Maybe not as much as the Hollywood Flawless filter. Like if you were to put that all over your face, you would look close to like Tin Man situation. This is a little bit more subtle than that, but you definitely have a glow. So I do like using this all by itself if I'm feeling a little sassy, but ideally I like kind of mixing this in with a tint. But this is another really very versatile product. It blends in really easily. I do think it has like blurring properties to it, much like the Hollywood Flawless Filter. It's just really, really beautiful on the skin. And I think if you like the Hollywood Flawless Filter, you'll really like this. But I really like stick form. It's easy to use, it's easy to travel with. A lot of my favorites are in stick form because of that, but I really like the glow that it gives my skin. It is very, very nice. I have very, very dry skin if you're unaware, so anything with a glow is very, very welcome here. Another one of Charlotte Tilbury's best products, I think, is their beautiful skin tint. This is her, basically her light coverage liquid foundation. I don't have it anymore because I decluttered it. Mine was just getting on in its years. I had it since its launch, and so I decluttered it recently. So when I was in Sephora and I was kind of repurchasing products that I didn't have in my Charlotte Tilbury collection, this product, the Beautiful Skin Tint, was one that I wanted to repurchase, but they didn't have my shade. So the shade that I use is 2N, if you do use me as a shade reference. And I just love the way it made my skin look. I love lighter coverage foundations, like tinted moisturizers, tinted SPFs, things like that. Those are my favorite types. So I remember when she came out with this, I was very, very excited because I think right before this release, she had released, it's the bottle, the oval bottle with the matte glass. I think it's like a matte fuller coverage foundation. And I really liked that one, but it just wasn't like something that I would reach for. It just wasn't like my preference in terms of foundation, but I thought it was very, very nice. And then when she came out with this, I remember thinking, oh my God, it was like she read my mind. This is the type of foundation that I would really, really like. And I did really, really love it. It has a really beautiful, like lotiony formula, very creamy, but not heavy at all. And it just was weightless on the skin, and it just like perfected my skin just enough where like enough of my real skin still shone through, so it didn't look like I was wearing a mask, and it was just a beautiful kind of finish. It was like a little glowier than just skin-like, but it wasn't glowy. It wasn't like this. It's not like this at all. But yeah, I just really liked it. It just looked very healthy on my skin. So I'm gonna be on the lookout for the Beautiful Skin Tint in shade 2, and I think I came home and checked online and it was sold out there too. Anyway, I love, love, love that foundation. That's my favorite foundation from Charlotte Tilbury. And this little guy, now if you guys have been watching me a long time, you guys know what I'm about to mention, but this is the Magic Vanish Corrector. And I'm not someone that usually takes the time or makes the effort to do a little like skin correction. I could probably use it for sure, but I usually just kind of conceal and that's it. But the lightest shade, which is this one, Fair, is just like a skin tone. And I thought, why don't I try it? I usually like Charlotte Tilbury products. Why don't I give it a shot? I was so pleasantly surprised. And this is actually one of the products that I just repurchased at Sephora because this is a cream product. I had it for a long time. I decluttered it. So I repurchased this and I have it on today underneath my eyes. And I was like tapping it in with my finger. Like, oh my God, I love this concealer. Even though it's a corrector, I use it as a concealer. And it just does such a good job. It blends in beautifully. The shade Fair one works perfectly like underneath my eyes. I don't think it's too brightening. I don't think it's like too deep at all. It's slightly peach. So if you have a little bit of discoloration underneath your eyes, that's like maybe blue, veiny leaning, this is gonna be really, really great. I just really appreciate the texture of this because it is quite emollient, but then it just sort of like sets. And it looks so flawless underneath the eyes. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about this, but this is incredible, incredible. And I highly recommend this Magic Vanish Corrector. I think that's the full name. Magic Vanish. Anyway, it's the corrector. It's not a concealer, it's a corrector. And this is another product that I purchased on my Sephora trip. And I decided to get the little one because it was so cute. So this is actually my third or fourth powder, and this has an incredibly long product name too. So this is the Airbrush Flawless Finish Setting Powder, and I have it in the shade 1 Fair, and I think there's 5 shades, 1, 2, 3, or 4 shades? 4 shades, okay. This is the mini size. I love it. It's so tiny. It's the same size as the Magic Vanish concealer. I've been confusing these all week. Anyway, this powder is one of those products that I feel like had me fall in love with the entire category. I never used to wear powder at all. Again, I have dry skin. I've always had dry skin. It's not because I'm old, but I've always had dry skin. So I've never really gotten into using powders, you know, and when I was younger, I never really got what they were for. I just felt like they always made skin look kind of dry and whatever. Anyway, I tried this powder when it first came out, when I kind of got into Charlotte Tilbury, and I was like, this is amazing. It's so lightweight. It does such a good job setting down your makeup without looking dry and without being too heavy. And I can use it like underneath my eyes. I can dust it all over. This is just such a rock solid, like workhorse powder. It's kind of like the Goldilocks of powders. It's very, very fine, sets down your makeup, it brings shine down, but it doesn't make your skin look too dry. You can use it underneath your eyes, all over. It's like the jack of all trades powder. So that's the Airbrush Flawless Finish Setting Powder. And I feel like when they first came out with this, the name of this was a lot longer. I feel like it was the Airbrush Flawless Skin Perfecting Setting Powder, like micro something. It was like a super long name. And I remember that because I always have to fill out the description box in my videos. And I was always like, oh my God, why are her product names so long? All right, next up, this is a product that I've been talking about a lot lately. This is the Film Star Bronze and Glow. And I do have the Sculpt Bronze side on today. I just have it basically as a bronzer. And I love it, much like the setting powder, the finishing powder. It is just a great workhorse product. I love the fact that this is a soft matte. It's not a like super dry powdery matte powder. This highlight is subtle, but you can definitely build it up. It has like a really nice kind of like French vanilla creaminess to it. And this is one of the first products I remember purchasing from Charlotte Tilbury. And this is another product, I don't think the formula, the packaging, nothing has changed with this in the many, many years that I remember having this. This is a product I've repurchased recently, and I was just, you know, it was just, again, it was like kind of comforting to know, and very nostalgic for me, but very comforting to know that they didn't change anything about this. Like they just got it right. They just got it right. And I remember kind of comparing other contour powders to this one when I started getting into contours, because this, I think, was the one product that like got me into it. And there were a bunch of like indie palettes. This is like way back when I first started YouTube, maybe 6-7 years ago. A bunch of indie palettes. I can't remember the company name, and they came out with this like sculpting palette and people were going nuts, but the powders were so gray. It was very theatrical and it would be great for makeup artists or whatever. But I remember comparing it to this, and I was like, that's way too gray. So I even remember back then kind of just like always comparing the tones of contours to this product. And like, I could go a little bit warmer, I could go a little bit cooler, but this was kind of like my standard contour shade. So that's the Film Star Bronze and Glow. I love it. It's not a Charlotte Tilbury video unless you talk about her nipple blushes. So I'm left with two, but I think at one point I had all of them. I loved these blushes. And in fact, I think this was the absolute first product I purchased from Charlotte Tilbury, and it was the shade First Love. I have since decluttered it because that was like 8 years old. But I am left with Ecstasy. And this was actually a replacement for an older one, so that's why it looks kind of brand new. And I have Pillow Talk. Now this one is old, and this I actually have on today, just the blush, the outer ring here. It's the blush that I have on. This one, now they've come out with a Pillow Talk and then a Pillow Talk Intense. This one looks more like the Intense, but not as intense as the Intense. So I'm not sure if they changed up the shades after coming out with this original Pillow Talk, but this is the original Pillow Talk, which I think is closer to the Intense than the plain old Pillow Talk now. Clear as mud? Okay, so this is what I have on my cheeks today. And you know, this blush is just great. I don't like a matte blush. Sorry, I'm looking at both of these. They both have like a satin finish. Sorry, it's kind of hard to tell. It'll be not easy to tell in a swatch either, but let's try. You'll be able to tell. This is the Pillow Talk one. Oh yeah, so there's like a very, very slight satin finish, and it's really just very, very pretty on the cheeks. It's very, very beautiful. It's very becoming. I don't really like matte products, again, because I have dry skin, and so I remember just loving the finish of these blushes. They were subtle. It wasn't like a blush colored highlighter. You know, that to me is like a little bit too much. This whole like nipple design, and I remember like watching videos of Charlotte Tilbury applying it or other influencers applying it, where it was like this swish Swish and Pop. What does she call these? The Cheek to Chic Swish and Glow blusher. Oh, right. This was Swish and Pop. Okay, so some of her blushes have like the highlighter in there, and then some of her blushes, like this Ecstasy one, was more like a dual dimension blusher. And so these were the Swish and Pop. So what she would do is run the brush around, apply this blush, and then, you know, dab her brush right in the middle, and then put that right on the apple of the cheek. And it was just, you know, it was fun. It was innovative at the time. But what I really love about these blushes is the formula. I love, love, love the formula. They're pressed powder. They're easy to use. The shades are really beautiful. And I really do love the finish of them. Just rock solid blush. Now, the Beauty Light Wand. I had to talk about these. So I have got this one, the Pillow Talk one, on. And these Pillow Talk ones came later. I have since decluttered all of the wands that I had because they have this dispenser, which is not so odd anymore, but I believe Charlotte Tilbury was the first, if not one of the first people to use this dispenser. And you have to twist to unlock, squeeze, it came out of this, you know, sponge top, and then you had to close it and then put the cap back on. Now, obviously I've learned because I now can keep them pretty clean. I'm very careful with them. But if you squeeze out too much, if you forget to close it again, you will make a mess of this. And I remember that was a huge criticism of this particular product. I think also there wasn't that much actual product in here. Let me see. 0.4 fluid ounces, but I remember that was one of the criticisms. Anyway, the product inside was gorgeous, and I believe the first two wands she came out with was the contour one, which I actually really, really do enjoy. I don't have that in my collection anymore. I need to repurchase that. And then the highlight. And it was just one of each, and I loved that highlighter. I don't even think it had a shade name. Anyway, that obviously has since expanded. And this Pillow Talk one is the one that I like to use now because it's just a very cool toned pink. But I happen to really like cream or liquid highlighters because they're not quite as like opaque and intense as powder highlights generally. So I really like the effect that cream and liquid highlighters have because of this. It has like a sheer, glossy, like soft metallic finish, and they just blend out really beautifully. I feel like the idea of what a highlighter is really lends itself to being in cream form because I like to be able to kind of like work it in and tap it in and really like be able to diffuse the edges versus like a powder, which sometimes I find, you know, if I go in just a little bit too heavy-handed, you got to sit there and like blend and it may or may not blend out. Anyway, I really love this highlight. It's just, isn't it gorgeous? It's very, very, I'll use air quotes, it's very natural. It's a very natural highlight. Now, I can't get the words out. I have a love-hate relationship with Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows. Most of her quads, they turn very, very warm on my skin. And again, if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you've seen it. You've seen it happen before your eyes. And I really like a lot of the color stories. I remember there was one, was it the Sophisticate? Even that one would turn a little bit warm on me. There was one like cream color in there, and even that turned a little bit peach. Anyway, you know, the one quad that I loved from her has since been discontinued. It was one of the baked gel powder formulas. It's been discontinued. So anyway, I couldn't really talk about any of the quads because I don't reach for them. I'm always afraid they're gonna get too warm. However, I love, love, love these Eyes to Mesmerize potted cream shadows. I have Oyster Pearl on my lids, and when I've done one and done eyeshadow videos, you guys have heard me talk about this. These are just, I don't know, I just think they're really, really beautiful. And because I like to do a one and done eyeshadow, generally I don't have a lot of time to sit there and like, you know, create like a full dimensioned outlook with like 5 different shadows and different effects or whatever. I really like being able to depend on one shadow to kind of like do it all. And Oyster Pearl is definitely one of those shadows. This is a really beautiful cream texture. It's not a putty. It's definitely a little bit softer than that. And so I do feel like maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve with these, because if you pick up too much, which is very easy to do because it is soft, you can pick up too much product, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if you guys remember the Tom Ford eyeshadow duos. So it'd be a cream at the bottom and the top would flip open, and it was like a pressed powder eyeshadow on top, and you can put the cream down and then tap the pressed powder eyeshadow on top. It was so great. It was basically the same formula as this. And if I remember correctly, Charlotte Tilbury was the creative director at Tom Ford Beauty and created those. And when she came out with her own brand, she created these. So this is one of those products, much like the Film Star Bronze and Glow. It's been around forever. They haven't changed. At least this color, Oyster Pearl, it's still available. The packaging is still the same, like all the things. And the second color that I really love, if you want an option, a lighter option, is Champagne. This also still around, really beautiful. It is much brighter than Oyster Pearl. Oyster Pearl for me is kind of a mid-tone. There is a deeper shade. I think it's like chocolate brown. Is it on here? No, there's rose gold and Pillow Talk, of course. Those two I don't have, but I have a darker brown one. I think the concern with these is whether or not they're gonna crease on the eyelids. I don't really have like super deep creases in my lids, so I have a hard time speaking to that, but I've never personally had a problem with these creasing or fading, or because they are like a soft formula. It's not like they like melt away or anything like that. None of that happens. They stay put. Yeah, I just really adore this product. So these are the Eyes to Mesmerize cream shadows. This is a product that when I was walking around Sephora, I picked up as well, because I was like, oh my gosh, again, another kind of nostalgic product, but the Natasha Denona lip cheats. This iconic nude lip cheat is so good. And it came out in a time where I think it was a little bit difficult to find like a real nice nude. Everything leaned a little peach. It was like companies were afraid to make things a little bit too cool because it looks a little bit scary on the shelf. It looks a little bit too gray, especially if like the lighting is a little harsh, like it will end up looking very gray. So I remember back then, buying like lip liner after lip liner and all of them turning really peach on my lips. And I was like, no, I want something cooler. I want something not pink necessarily, and not necessarily mauve, but just something cooler. And along came Iconic Nude. And unlike her eyeshadows, this doesn't turn that warm on my lips. It stays very, very neutral. Man, do I appreciate Charlotte Tilbury for this, because I feel like after this came out, many more lip liners came out that were much cooler. Like when Pat McGrath launched her line and all of those lip liners, those were very, very neutral, a little bit cool leaning. It was this way to contour your lips. Like if you weren't a makeup artist, it was an easy way to contour your lips basically. It was just to use like a cooler tone lip liner. And we had it finally. I wish I could remember the lip liners I was trying at the time that were they just turned too peach on me. And I remember going back to MAC. MAC had great lip liners as well, but I find their lip liners to be a little bit on the dry side. Is that unpopular? Probably. So the lip cheat, I think we can all agree, this is definitely one of Charlotte Tilbury's best products, hands down. And then next are her kissing lipsticks. So again, I'm a dry skin woman and I don't like matte things in general. Her Matte Revolution lipsticks, they're nice, but I prefer her kissing satin lipsticks. And she has a whole collection called like Runway Nudes. Am I remembering that correctly? I decluttered all of these because they were all bad. They had all turned on me. I had them forever. And I think some of the shades were matte, some of them were satin. I got all the satin ones, and man, do I love those colors, but they don't have them at Sephora. So when I was perusing Sephora, they did have Nude Kate, and I was like, oh my God, this is one of the OGs. And it's still called Nude Kate, but I guess Kate Moss didn't care. So anyway, that's what I have on my lips with the Iconic Nude. And when I first started wearing like heavy lipstick, because I definitely wore lip glosses and then I got into like lipsticks, this shade to me, which I guess it still is, it's kind of like concealer lip. I put it on and I was like, oh my God, it's like so light. I felt like it looked so weird. Like I looked like a mannequin before they painted the face on. And I remember it took me a while to kind of get used to like such a light nude color, but I love this color. It has like a honey nude kind of feel to it because it's warm, but it's not peach. There's like enough brown in there to kind of keep it concealer lip looking. And if you like that look, this is the perfect one for you. But her Kissing Satin Lipstick formula, I really, really love. I think my favorite color from her is Confession. Is that the like cool tone nude color that she came out with? It was limited edition and she never came back out with it. I think maybe it was repackaged into one of the runway nudes. But anyway, I love her satin lip formula. I love her nudes. Her lipsticks don't go warm on me, not like her eyeshadow. It's just her eyeshadows. Her lipsticks are really true to color, at least for me, from what you see in the tube. So love the shades, love the formula, love the packaging. Do you remember when these first came out? We were like, what? We were gagging over this like rose gold, kind of like Art Deco Hollywood packaging. They're still so beautiful, aren't they? Okay, I think that's 10, right? Oh my God, I think I miscounted and mentioned 11 things. Well, it doesn't matter. Those 11 things are my top 11 products from Charlotte Tilbury. I could probably very easily make a top 20, but we're gonna cut it right there. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. What are your favorite Charlotte Tilbury products? I would love to hear from you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.